Ever wonder why some of the biggest rock anthems, songs you swore you'd hear live, just disappeared like poof, gone from set lists? No farewell, no encore, just silence. It's not just about being hard to play. Sometimes it's deeper, messier, personal. And today, we're going behind the curtain. These tracks weren't just hits, they were ghosts in the making. Segment 1, Stairway to Heaven, Led Zeppelin.
All that glitters is gold.
Stairway to Heaven wasn't just a song, it was a movement. Released in 1971, it instantly became the anthem of a generation. 8 minutes of mystique, power, and pure Zeppelin. For years, it dominated airwaves, mixtapes, wedding playlists, and yes, awkward teenage jam sessions in dusty garages. But here's the twist. The band grew to hate it. Robert Plant, the voice behind the lyrics, started calling it that bloody wedding song. At one point, he even donated 10 grand to a radio station just to get them to stop playing it. Not because the song was bad, but because it was too good, too big, too expected. Every time they hit the stage, fans demanded it, loudly, relentlessly. And instead of feeling proud, the band, especially Plant, felt trapped, like they were being reduced to a single moment when they were trying to evolve. And after John Bonham passed away and the band split in 1980, Stairway disappeared with him. They've reunited since, but played the full song only once in 2007. Plant hasn't touched it since. Not even for the biggest stages, not even for millions of dollars.
Your head is humming out, it won't go in case you don't know.
Because sometimes a song becomes so iconic, it overshadows everything else you've ever done, and the only way out is silence. Segment 2, Creep, Radiohead.
When you were before, couldn't look you in the eye.
In 1992, Radiohead dropped Creep and instantly blew up. What started as a moody anthem by a bunch of awkward British art school kids suddenly became the song for every outsider, loner, and late-night soul searcher. But Tom York, he absolutely hated it. He called it crap, said it was too whiny, too simple, too expected. The band didn't just dislike it, they banned it from set lists. For years, they flat out refused to play the very song that put them on the map, and it's not because it wasn't good, it was because it boxed them in. They were chasing experimental sounds, bending genres, pushing boundaries, and fans just kept yelling, "Play Creep," like it was the only thing they'd ever done. York even snapped at crowds more than once. One time, someone shouted for it, and he just deadpanned, "Fuck off, we're not playing that." Brutal, but honest. Eventually, the band made peace with it, kind of. Creep came back to a few shows here and there, but you could always tell they weren't in love with it, not really, because when one song becomes a shadow that follows you into every room, every interview, every encore, eventually you stop running toward it and start running away. Segment 3, Tomorrow Never Knows, The Beatles.
Now it looks as though they're here to stay. Oh, I believe.
In 1966, the Beatles released Revolver, and it was like they cracked open a new dimension. No more boyish love songs, no more simple hooks. Right at the end of side A was Tomorrow Never Knows, a wild psychedelic experiment that didn't sound like anything else on Earth, and they never played it live, not once. Now you might think, well, they stopped touring that year, makes sense. But here's the thing, they weren't even planning to play it live. Not before, not after, it was basically untouchable. George Martin, their producer, the genius behind the curtain, called the backing track unrepeatable, because it kind of was. The entire thing was stitched together with tape loops, reversed audio, echo chambers, and effects that were totally impossible to recreate on stage in the 60s.
Please help me.
This wasn't a song you could just walk on stage and plug in. It was a studio hallucination, a sonic collage, almost a glitch in reality. And yet, it influenced everything. From electronic music to trip-hop to modern sound design, Tomorrow Never Knows was light years ahead of its time, and the band seemed to know it. Instead of watering it down for live shows, they left it where it belonged, locked in the studio, like a time capsule no one could open again, a classic that never got an encore because it was never meant to. Segment 4, Brown Sugar, the Rolling Stones. Released in 1971, Brown Sugar hit like a punch to the jaw, gritty, loud, and instantly iconic. That opening riff? Pure fire. For decades, it was a guaranteed crowd pleaser. If the Stones were on stage, you were getting Brown Sugar, no questions asked, until you weren't. In 2021, the band quietly dropped it from their set list. No press release, no farewell performance, just gone, like it never happened. Why? Because the lyrics, well, they aged badly. Even Mick Jagger admitted he wasn't totally sure what the song was about when he wrote it, but over time, the references to slavery, abuse, and exploitation became too glaring to ignore. Keith Richards initially pushed back, said, "You're trying to bury something?" But even he eventually backed off, and that's the thing. They didn't cancel it. They didn't make a big deal out of it. They just stopped. For some fans, it felt like losing an old friend. For others, it was long overdue. Either way, Brown Sugar, once a staple of rock rebellion, became a ghost in the Stones' legacy. One of the loudest songs they ever recorded. Now replaced by a quiet decision not to look back. Because sometimes the past doesn't belong in the spotlight anymore. Segment 5. The Show Must Go On. Queen. Released in 1991, The Show Must Go On was Queen's final chapter with Freddie Mercury still at the mic. You can hear it, every line drenched in pain, resilience, and the kind of courage most of us will never understand. It wasn't just about performing, it was about survival. Freddie was gravely ill during recording. He could barely stand. Legend says he knocked back a shot of vodka, walked into the booth, and nailed the vocals in one brutal, beautiful take, and then silence. After his death, Queen didn't touch the song live. Not for years, not even with a guest singer. Because for them, it wasn't just a track, it was him. Too personal, too raw, too soon. They finally performed it live in 1997. Elton John took the lead. It was emotional, powerful, and honestly, hard to watch. You could see it in their faces. This wasn't nostalgia, it was grief. Since then, it's only been played on rare occasions, not because the song was forgotten, but because it hurts too much. Even for a band that played through everything, The Show Must Go On wasn't something you just add to the set list. Because some songs aren't about entertainment, they're about everything you can't say out loud. Segment 6, The Bewlay Brothers, David Bowie.
You could kill them by smiling, you could leave them to hang.
Tucked at the end of David Bowie's 1971 album, Hunky Dory, The Bewlay Brothers feels like a dream you're not sure you want to understand. It's eerie, cryptic, and unsettling in that Bowie way, like it's broadcasting from another dimension, static, whispers, and lyrics that never quite land. Hardcore fans love it. Some even call it his hidden masterpiece, but here's the kicker. Bowie barely ever performed it live. One time, ever. In 2002, that's it. Why? Even Bowie didn't fully know what it was about. He admitted as much. Some say it's about his half-brother Terry, who battled mental illness and spent years in institutions. Others think it's a coded letter to Bowie's own fears, his identity, his shadow self. And that's the thing. This track was personal. Too personal. It wasn't built for stadiums. It wasn't made for sing-alongs. It was Bowie, stripped down and strange, tucked away in the corner of a record like a secret no one was supposed to hear twice.
Take that test.
The one time he did perform it live, it was a quiet moment at the BBC Radio Theatre. No flashing lights, no spectacle, just Bowie, a mic, and that ghost of a song. And then, back into the vault, left alone. Not forgotten, but untouchable. Exactly the way he wanted it. Segment 7. It's a long way to the top if you want to rock and roll, AC/DC. Released in 1975, It's a Long Way to the Top wasn't just a rock song. It was a warning label, a marching anthem for every sweaty, broke, half-starved band grinding it out in dingy clubs, chasing glory one bad gig at a time. And then came the twist. AC/DC stopped playing it, for good. It wasn't a technical thing, or a controversy. It was Bon. Bon Scott wasn't just the lead singer. He was the heart of that track. The snarl in the vocals, the guy who made bagpipes in a rock song somehow feel like the most natural thing in the world. When he died in 1980, the band made an unspoken decision. That song died with him. Brian Johnson, who took over vocals, never touched it, not once. Not because he couldn't, but because he wouldn't, out of respect. It's rare in rock and roll where everything gets remixed, replayed, revived again and again to just let something go. But AC/DC did. And that silence, it speaks louder than the song ever did. Fans still blast it. It shows up in movies, commercials, even sports anthems. But live, it's sacred ground, a sealed track. Forever Bon's battle cry, because sometimes the song belongs to the person, not the band. Segment 8. 1 in a Million, Guns N' Roses.
Change today. And I don't need no bracelet.
In 1988, Guns N' Roses were flying high. Appetite for Destruction had turned them into rock gods practically overnight. And then came GNR Lies, an EP that included one of the most uncomfortable tracks in rock history. 1 in a Million. It was stripped down. Acoustic, just Axl Rose and a guitar. But the lyrics? They weren't rebellious. They were radioactive, slurs, xenophobia, homophobia, lines that didn't just raise eyebrows. They sparked outrage. Even some die-hard fans couldn't defend it. Critics shredded it. Artists called it out. It crossed a line. Axl tried to explain it away, said it was from a character's point of view, that it wasn't meant to be taken literally.
You know we tried to reach you, but you were much too high.
But the backlash stuck, and the song, it never made it to the stage, not once. Guns N' Roses, one of the most dangerous, rule-breaking bands of their time, refused to play it live. And in 2018, when they reissued GNR Lies, the track quietly disappeared from the lineup. No announcement, no defense, just erased. Even Axl eventually distanced himself from it. And that says something, because there's controversial and then there's toxic. And this song crossed a line even Guns N' Roses didn't want to revisit. Sometimes silence isn't just a choice, it's damage control. Some of these tracks were too raw, some too risky, others just too painful. But each one tells a story, not just about music, but about the artists behind it, what they kept in, what they couldn't revisit, what they chose to leave off the stage forever. And maybe that's the real heart of rock and roll. Not just the songs we hear, but the ones we don't. The ghosts hiding behind the greatest hits. The setlist omissions that say more than a sold-out encore ever could. If you made it this far, you're clearly one of us, someone who gets the deeper side of music. So hit that subscribe button. We've got more stories like this, more untold moments, strange decisions, and the mysteries behind the songs you thought you knew. Until next time, keep listening for what's not being played.